Hello there, welcome to the Strengths with Joy show. Here we will learn from experts in positive psychology and be inspired by real life stories from everyday heroes using positive psychology to empower themselves and the people around them. I am Joy Leng from Singapore and I'm a positive hypnotherapist. My joy is in empowering people in celebrating strengths-based whole brain living using positive psychology tools and hypnotherapy. This show is part of our Be Well and Be Strong COVID-19 free well-being series. Besides Strengths with Joy chat, we also have Facebook Live for Super Monday, Resilient Wednesday, and Self-Care Friday at GMT plus 8, which is Singapore and Malaysia, 4 p.m. on this page, SuperPact with Joy Method Facebook page. Super Monday is where we explore how to develop our strengths. So make your Mondays super powered with me. In this pandemic, resilient is the name of the game. Apply science-based research findings into actionable strategies that you can use and share with your family and friends to become more resilient. So let's be pandemic-proof together. On Self-Care Friday, we will learn tools and techniques that we can apply for ourselves whenever we feel stressed. Take responsibility for your own self-care and for those under your care. Today, I'm very happy to be able to present to you a good friend. And when I was assessed for my accreditation in strengths profile, I was blessed to be allocated a kind, gentle, and very supportive assessor, Julie. And we have since become fast friends. And she's this amazing woman who is just so supportive in all my work endeavors. Listen to her positive psychology wisdom and to what her client, Catherine, has to say about learning from this phenomenal being and the power of using scientific strengths assessment to enrich her life. Julie is a positive psychology coach, trainer, and facilitator. She specializes in positive psychology, leadership, and strengths team development. In addition to this, she lectures part-time at the University College Cork and Ireland on the Masters in Coaching Psychology. Julie has a Master's in Positive Coaching and is an accredited Strengths, Emotional Intelligence, and Health and Wellness coach. Her work has taken her to the US, Europe, Asia, and South Africa. She has been a panel guest as a positive psychology specialist on the Irish TV program Today Show. So let me present to you Julie. Welcome,
Hi.
Julie.
Hi, Joy. It's lovely to meet you and see you today.
Thank you for joining us.
You're
excellent.
very welcome.
I'm excited to start our conversation. This is the first time that this show actually have additional guest, which is your client. So this is going to be a very interesting show that we're going to have today. So give us a fun fact about yourself. Tell us something that most people doesn't know.
Most people wouldn't know I've run 9 marathons. So I'm a bit of a runner. I've been running for the last 15 years. So started off just running a mile and then I got hooked. So yeah, I love marathons. I recently ran a stay-at-home marathon, obviously with the pandemic. So myself and my husband ran a stay-at-home marathon for charity, and we raised €9,000 for an air ambulance locally. So yeah, that was fun. We didn't train for it. We just had a situation that my husband needed an air ambulance, and then we decided we'd run the marathon. So it was great. It took a while because it's very hilly where I live, but yeah, that was fun. Well, it wasn't
Julie,
at the time, but it was.
There is nothing little about that. Okay, 9 marathons. That's crazy. I have not even ran half a marathon.
Oh well, maybe that's a goal that you want to set for yourself, Joy.
I'll think about it.
I'll think about it. Yeah.
I think I'll stick to dancing. I'll leave the running to you, Julie.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. It does get to your joints after a while, I have to say.
Okay, thank you for sharing that fun fact about yourself. I want to say a shout out to our audience. Thank you, Jade and Sunny, for joining us. And we have George and Jean and Shafi. Whoa, we have quite an audience over here. Okay, so let's dive straight in. Julie, share with us, how did you get started on your journey as a strengths coach?
Okay. Well, I suppose originally, like many people, we start in one profession, but then decide it's not for us. So I spent 20 years in corporate life, working in London in finance and IT. And whilst that was financially rewarding, it really just, I suppose, didn't float my boat. When I thought about it and when I looked to the future and thought, do I want to spend the rest of my life doing what I'm doing now? The answer to that, in short, was no. And a friend suggested I do a coaching qualification, which I did and loved, and then realised that this is what I wanted to do. And at the time, in Ireland particularly, that there seemed to be so many coaches. So I decided what I needed to do was to have some evidence behind my coaching practice. So I looked into studying positive psychology. And at the time, you could only study positive psychology in London and in the States. And at the time, I was living in Ireland. So London was a bit closer than going to the US. So I went to London back in 2009 and did a master's in positive psychology. And through that course was introduced to strengths. Somebody from Capfinity came and did a lecture. And I just thought, wow, this is fantastic. This is such a positive place to start with a coaching client. So I approached with the partner I work with, Brenda. We spoke to Capfinity and came to an arrangement whereby we actually deliver the face-to-face programs in Ireland. And I've been working as an associate for Capfinity for the last 10 years. So
Wow.
that's my journey to strength, so to speak.
10 years. So I'm really curious as a strengths coach myself. I personally, it was a natural call for me. It is just something so energizing about coaching people about their strengths. It's just, it's just like an addiction for me. So I'm very curious for you as a strengths. What is it about coaching people on their strengths that hooks you?
What hooks you? Well, I think the first thing is when you think about it, and when you chat to people, so many people don't have very much self-confidence, do they, in themselves? And we tend to, as human beings, we tend to have a very negativity bias. So we tend to focus on the wrong rather than what's right with us. So we tend to think about what can't we do and to look at our weaknesses and beat ourselves up. We're very self-critical. And I think what Strengths Profile does, it gives you the opportunity to see what you're good at. To actually focus on the things that you're good at, to look for the good. And that's a real shift in people's mindset. I think the first thing it does, it really helps people in relation to their self-awareness. It helps them to understand themselves. We so infrequently have the opportunity to stand back, take stock, take the time to actually reflect on ourselves. We're always go, 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 go. Whereas, completing a strengths profile and having a strengths debrief gives the person the opportunity to focus on themselves. It increases their self-awareness and most importantly, it helps them with their self-confidence, because what they have is they have a list of strengths. These are all the things that you're good at, and this is what makes you unique. And just even seeing that list in front of that person is so beneficial for them, because if you were asked if you asked a person to list their strengths, they probably wouldn't be able to give you so many off the top of their heads. They'd probably give you a list of weaknesses, but Strengths Profile helps the person to focus on the things that they're good at. And that's really, really beneficial from a self-confidence perspective. And I suppose the other thing it does is it gives them a set of strengths that can help them achieve their goals. So, if you want to achieve something, look at the things that you're good at. And if you're playing to your strengths, you're going to be happier, you're going to be more self-confident, you're going to be more productive. So it makes common sense. It makes common sense to have that approach. But it isn't, unfortunately, it is common sense, but it isn't necessarily commonplace at the moment, I don't think, even though it's obviously getting better.
Given that you specialize in positive psychology, and positive psychology is broad, there's so many different topics, right? Like positive emotions, resilience, and so on. So why did you choose to focus on strengths?
I suppose it's the foundation of positive psychology. I think it's, without that, what you need to be able to build, don't you? Of course, and I think if you go back to the PERMA model from Martin Seligman, positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. Strengths forms a big part of that. In terms of positive emotions, and that really increases your positive emotions when you know your strengths. And if you think about accomplishment, just being able to know what you're good at will help you achieve your goals. So just from that perspective alone, I found it really beneficial. But for me, I think it really gives me energy. And I think with the clients that I'm working with, it gives them energy too, because strengths isn't just about performance, and it isn't about how frequently we use something. It's about understanding what gives us energy. So if we know what gives us energy, that gives us a buzz. I mean, that really helps people to feel fulfilled in life, because ultimately we all want to flourish. So knowing our strengths and understanding our strengths and playing to our strengths will help us flourish in life.
I can't help but I can't resist sharing this because I think it's a bit relevant. So doing interviews is a very recent thing. Most of the time I was sharing my own content. So it's like a solo thing on Facebook Live for some time. And then in April, I did my strengths profile again. And then I realized the top unrealized strengths, a lot are like relating strengths, which I was not able which I didn't really have a chance to use. I guess that's why they're unrealized. Like, a connector and a relationship deepener, catalyst, and so on. So I started this interview series. I am enjoying it, and I realized that, wow, I'm actually tapping on a lot of my top unrealized strengths just simply by this new phase 2 of my work, where I'm doing a lot of interviews and starting to interact with other people, other experts. And in the beginning, it's a very peculiar feeling because I'm not used to it, but I know that it doesn't de-energize me, and now I'm starting to be used to it, and I'm starting to find that it energizes me. I look forward to this connection, learning from others, and this micro moments of connection with my guests as well, and seeing what the audience say. Okay, I think we've lost Julie for a moment.
Sorry.
Hey, Julie, you're back.
Sorry. Are you still? Sorry.
Magician moment.
Sorry about that.
No worries, so long as you're back. Yeah. So I felt like wanted to share the power of knowing what are your realized strengths and unrealized strengths, tapping on your unrealized strengths, because you know that, hey, so interesting, that gives me energy, and then you can do more of that.
Yes. Yeah. The energy piece is really interesting and so important. Yeah.
So Julie, share with us what are the benefits that your students and your clients have experienced that you have noticed?
Well, I mean, as I said, self-awareness, huge, self-confidence, massive, knowing what they're good at and being able to play to that, understanding what strengths can help them to achieve their goals. I think that's what's really important is also for people not to focus on their weaknesses. I know you just asked me a strengths-based question, but I think the thing about weaknesses, we all have them. So it's about helping people to make their strengths, make their weaknesses irrelevant. So our weaknesses are only relevant if they're business critical. So helping people to understand, rather than giving your time to focus on something that you're not good at and only being average at that, why don't you actually embrace your weaknesses, because we all have them, and actually look at the things that you're already good at and get better, even better at those things, because that really helps us to move forward in life. So for you, knowing your unrealized strengths and being able to dial that up has enabled you actually to grow, hasn't it? You've actually thought, okay, I have an unrealized strength. It gives me energy. I'm good at it, but I haven't yet given myself the opportunity to use it. Now you're giving yourself the opportunity to use it. You know that it gives you energy, and you're getting better and better and better at that. So that's really powerful. But, we could spend hours and hours and years trying to do something we're not good at and only ever become average. So it's about focusing on what you're good at already and getting even better at that, because I think that will really give us forward momentum and help us grow and flourish in life.
Yes. Can you hear Julie's enthusiasm as she's sharing? And I'm enjoying that energetic vibe from Julie. So any real life stories that you can share, Julie, about how maybe some transformation that you have seen because of strength coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about somebody I was working with recently, and she's a young woman, sort of late 20s, straight A student, got a good job, but she lacked self-confidence in herself, even though she has, academically she is just straight A's across the board. And what was lovely was when we did her strengths profile. And obviously everybody's strengths profile is unique, and sometimes people have strengths envy and they think, oh gosh, I would like my profile to look like this or like this. look, we're all unique, so what we have we should use. And when we looked at the young lady's strength profile, we actually just explore that in a little bit more detail. And what was wonderful to see was her blossom in front of me, because the things that she thought weren't relevant in life. So I'll give you an example. Humor is a beautiful strength to have. And throughout my career, I've often seen senior leaderships be very disappointed to have humor, because they think, oh gosh, humor, I shouldn't have humor. I'm a very important person, therefore I don't need humor in my strengths profile.
I should be serious all the time.
I need to be serious all the time. And that's so not true. And when you dig a little bit deeper, and when you explore that and explore the importance of humor, the person just comes to light. So, when you think about humor, it isn't about being a comedian and standing up on stage telling jokes. Humor is about making people at ease. It's about reading the room. It's about having a light-hearted joke. It's about maybe telling a funny story, but it's about people feeling comfortable in a space where they feel safe. And you know what? It's great to have a laugh. We all need to experience positive emotions. And if you're the sort of person that can read the room and think, gosh, I just need to lighten this a little bit, so I need to use my humor, that's really powerful. And that is such a strength, and that's such a skill. And I think just being able to, explore that strength with this individual and the leader that I was telling you about, she was like, oh gosh, I didn't realize that I did that so well. And I think the other thing is that sometimes when you do something so easily, when it comes naturally, when it's innate, you take it for granted that other people can do that too, but they can't. So my top strength is connector. I love connecting people, and I do it. I would do it every single day, all the time, if I could, because I love to do that. Not everybody does that, and not everybody wants to do that or is good at it. So, it's about helping the person to understand that they're unique. So that particular individual I was going back to, we explored her humor, we explored her modesty and her emotional awareness, and she got to understand how helpful all of those strengths were in her life and in the career and in the work that she was doing, and really got a better understanding of herself. And actually, you know what? I actually can do this. I have all these things. These are my superpowers, and I can apply them in my work and in my life. And she came out of that, I just felt so proud that I'd helped that young woman to really believe in herself, because she had these strengths that she could work with.
I love it. You used the word superpowers. I'm with you on that.
It's contagious, you see, Joy.
It definitely is. So what about yourself? How have living a strengths-based life been like for you?
Well, I think, it's about what's it like for me. I have my profile in my mind, I suppose, and it's about sometimes when you get stuck yourself personally, you have to think, okay, what do I have? What can I use that will help me get past being stuck? And, just to give you maybe it's not a silly example, but an example I could give you is recently, a few years ago, I decided to do a triathlon. So, the swim, the run, the cycle, I can run and I can cycle, but I'm dreadful at swimming. So I decided to do this. And of course, once you declare something publicly, if you ever want to reach a goal, declare it publicly, because then you have to do it. So I declared it. I told my friends and family and community, I'm going to do this triathlon. So the problem was I couldn't swim. Well, I can swim, but I didn't like swimming. So, we went to Greece on holiday, and I wouldn't even get in the swimming pool. And my husband was saying, Julie, you're going to be doing a triathlon in a few months. You need to start swimming. So there's a beautiful swimming pool. There's a warm sea. And I still wasn't swimming. I came home and, I wasn't swimming. So I actually thought to myself, okay, I need to do this. What do I have that I can use? And I looked at my profile and I saw what jumped out at me was persistence. I don't give up. I am a persistent person. And just having that in my mind to say, you know what, I was thinking I can't do this. I have persistence as a strength. I'm not going to give up. Just that was a big enough shift for me to get into the water and slowly start to swim. So I started by doing breadths of the beach where I live. So look, bringing that into my focus helped me get past being stuck with a particular goal I had. And I do that often, you know, when I'm sort of either feeling maybe a little bit down or I have to do that. What do I have that I can use to help me achieve what I want to achieve? So it's, for me, I suppose I live it because I believe in it.
I love how there was this ready thing for you to looking at your strengths profile, and with that, it's almost like it gives you permission to reinvent the narrative that you're saying about yourself, because you saw it and then you're like, what can I use? Persistent. Hey, I am a persistent person. The first thing that came to your mind was an identity statement, and that's powerful. And because of that singular statement, suddenly you have this zest and motivation and inspiration to like, hey, I can do this. I'm a persistent person. And such a simple thing. Um, I love how when you do when you live strengths-based life, you have this ready to, and these are your natural innate superpowers that energize you. Whatever obstacle doesn't look so much like obstacle anymore when you look at your strengths.
Not at all. I mean, the thing about obstacles is they're there, aren't they? They're in life. We all face obstacles, but it's about, you know, what do you do with it? You can go over it, you can go around it, you can go through it, you can go under it, but we have to find a way. And, you know, I suppose this is about finding a way. It gives us something positive to focus on and helps us to get where we want to go.
Or you can swim across it.
Well, I still don't go. I still don't go into the sea very often. But look, and I haven't done another triathlon, but I did one, so that was enough.
Oh, that's already more than what most of us do, I assure you. So kudos on that. Well done, Julie. Awesome. So now I think it's time to bring in our special guest, and I'm sure by now the audience are very curious. How is it? How is it like? What's the experience like to do strengths-based coaching? So here I would want to invite our special guest, Catherine, into the conversation.
Hi, Joy.
Hi, Catherine. Welcome.
Hi, Joy. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Catherine.
Thank you for your patience in the background.
So, it was interesting listening to Julie.
So, Catherine, perhaps you can start by sharing how did you and Julie meet, under what context?
So Julie and I met in my previous job. I worked with startup companies, and Julie and her business colleague Brenda did quite a lot of personal development group workshops with us. And after that, I went and did the strengths profile with Julie, and I actually introduced it to my group work after that as a tool for all those entrepreneurs to use in their own business.
So, can you give us the background, the context? How did you get started in the strengths coaching, and
yes,
so whatever you're comfortable with sharing?
I did the profile myself, I suppose, first to experience it, and I found it. I suppose overall, I found it such a positive experience. I'm interested in what makes people tick and how people can get the best out of themselves and others. So I guess it appealed to me from that point of view. So I think that's how I started. Yeah, I've actually done it. I've done it twice. We discovered this week, doing it again, that it was 10 years ago that I did this strengths profile first, and we've actually just recently done it again. Well, I've taken it again with Julie's help just this week.
So, what was the experience like? So share it with
Yeah,
our audience who have never experienced strengths coaching. So I think they must be curious. Oh, what happens during a session?
yeah. I guess for me, it's a way of understanding yourself a little bit more. It's for me, it was a really positive experience. So the exercise itself is quite straightforward. You, as Julie alluded to earlier, you answer a series of questions in an online questionnaire, and they focus on what you're good at, what your weaknesses are, the things that give you energy. And for me, I suppose there's real power in seeing the result, because you see um, the breadth of talent, I suppose, if you like, that you might not see in yourself, or there's something quite powerful in seeing all these strengths written down, and you kind of think, oh, right, okay, yeah, well, there's a lot here. It certainly made me feel better about myself, and particularly the weaknesses. I think that sort of seeing what you're not good at written down, as Julie said earlier, if it's not business critical, then it sort of disempowers them a bit, I think, seeing it written down.
Mm. So when you receive your strengths report, what were your insights? What were your feelings staring at the strengths, realized, unrealized, weaknesses, learned behavior?
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. It's kind of hard to believe when you're answering this series of questions online, um, how accurate it really is, And I suppose what's quite interesting is that some of the strengths that would have appeared in my unrealized strengths 10 years ago are now in my realized strengths. So, I mean, that's quite good to see that, that I've moved some of them on or started using them more. For example, I've always loved writing. I've loved to write, and that would have been an unrealized strength. It would have been a small part of my previous work. And in the last number of years, I now work for myself. I work freelance, and writing has become a much bigger part of my work life. But also, I undertook a master's a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, that I'm finishing now, and writing obviously is a huge part of that. And it's kind of nice to know that oh yeah, this is one of the things I'm good at, and it's not just me that thinks I'm good at it. I've seen it in my strengths profile, so it must be true. So
There's something so powerful, isn't it, when you think, I think that's my strengths, but everything changes when you see it in a report, and it's like confirmation, it's like stamp of approval. Yes, that is your strength. Science is, on your side, it's confirmation, that's your strength. I get a high, a thrill when I see that.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. The stamp of approval is a good way of putting it. Because people tell you you're good at things, or poor at things, and it's just nice to hear it from from something like this. It just, as you say, it feels like a stamp of approval, which is nice. Yeah.
So, Katrin, what was your greatest insight with your last strengths coaching with Julie?
Um, I think, as I said, some of the strengths have moved. Some of the top ones have changed a little. Some of it has stayed the same. I suppose I was struck with how much more important it is now that I'm self-employed. There's an overwhelming need to stay more positive, really, to motivate yourself when you're not working for somebody else. And I suppose especially the energy, for me, that's huge. I suppose doing, not only doing things that play to your strengths, but doing things in a way that works with your strengths. So, a lot of what Julie talks about is whether or not something is business critical, and finding a way around doing something that you don't feel particularly strong about. And I think that for me has been the biggest thing, that even the parts of work or study or life that you don't particularly enjoy doing, that there is a manner of doing it when you play to your strengths. I've getting around it or getting past it.
Julie, anything you want to comment?
Yeah, that's so true, Catherine, isn't it? I mean, because when I was nodding my head when Catherine was saying about, she's brilliant at writing. That's so true, and writing is my weakness. So the way I found a way around that. So Catherine, if you're okay with me sharing this, has been helping me with my marketing, because for me, as soon as I start to write something, it de-energizes me. So I found a way around that. So Catherine and I worked together, and Catherine has helped me enormously with that. So, there are ways around our weaknesses. We don't have to be good at everything. And as Catherine said, embrace the things that aren't business critical. And if something is business critical, find somebody who has that as a strength and you can buddy up with, or, in some situations, ask the other person to do it. Because sometimes we think, oh gosh, I can't ask that person because if I hate doing this, they'll hate doing it. Actually, often the person goes, yeah, wow, of course, I'd love to do that because I love it. Because you don't like doing it doesn't mean to say somebody else doesn't love to do it. So, as Catherine said, it's about finding ways around getting around your weaknesses so that they don't impact on your goals or your performance.
And I think, just to cut in there, I think it makes it in a way less emotional and more factual when you're for example, Julie and I did a debrief session after I did the strengths profile this week, and it I suppose when you're talking about goals and what you want to do with your life, obviously it's an emotional subject, but something like this is something very factual to hang your steps towards your goal on, and it just makes everything seem a bit more possible, and I guess makes you feel a bit more powerful.
And can I just add to that? I think what's powerful, just to add to what Catherine was saying, is it's about taking what you see, which is maybe the theory, and then putting it into practice. Because of course, the profile and the conversation is interesting, but what are you now going to do with that? I think that's really important. We need to take those unrealized strengths and put them into action so that you are moving towards the goal that you're trying to achieve. And I think that's also the power in the conversation that you had, or the debriefing session that you have with the person that you're working with.
So Julie, just a quick explanation for our audience who's not familiar with strengths profile, because we keep talking about realized strengths and unrealized strengths. Can you explain a little bit what is the difference?
Very briefly. Okay, so if you complete your strengths profile, you answer 180 questions in relation to 60 strengths. And depending on how you've answered those questions, you'll see your strengths appear in one of 4 quadrants. So a realized strength is something that gives you energy, you use frequently, and you're good at it, so you perform well at it. So that's called a realized strength. It ticks 3 boxes: energy, performance, and use. There's another quadrant called a learned behavior, which is something that you're good at. It's still a strength, but actually it doesn't give you any energy. Maybe because you've overused that strength. Sometimes we can actually overplay our strengths. If you listen too much, if you're a counsellor and you've got 8 clients a day, sometimes it's a strength as a listener, but maybe it can become de-energizing if you do it too much. So that's a learned behavior. Weaknesses, there's another quadrant called weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. They are what they say on the tin. We can't be good at everything, and it's about making your weaknesses irrelevant and embracing those that aren't business critical. And then you have something called an unrealized strength. So this is your hidden talent. This is your treasure box, if you like. This is your area for greatest growth. So an unrealized strength is something that you're good at, gives you energy, but you haven't yet given yourself the opportunity to use. So what we look at when we're doing the debriefing is, how do you dial that unrealized strength up? How do you focus on that, or give yourself the opportunity to now use that unrealized strength in earnest towards a goal? Does that answer the question? Hopefully.
Definitely. That was very useful. Thank you, Julie. So, Katrin, I'm very curious. When you look at your unrealized strength, what feelings how did you feel? Was it fear, or like a sense of foreignness, or were you excited, or what was it?
I think I I think the unrealized strengths is probably the most exciting part of it. I think, as Julie said earlier, sometimes you see your strengths and you go, oh, really? God, I wish there was more of this and less of this or whatever. But I think the unrealized strengths, it kind of almost feels like somebody is, I don't know, telling you a secret about yourself. It feels quite exciting, I suppose. Yeah, there's probably a little bit of fear with weaknesses, you know, seeing it written down. But there's nothing to do with that. Only kind of get over it and find strengths that can get you past your weaknesses. But yeah, I think there's like a treasure chest, I think you called it, Julie. There's that sense of things to come, or excitement in the unrealized strengths, that you might do things slightly differently to what you've done before. Like, for example, one of mine is courage. So if I feel at a total loss about something, I just go, well, you know, I'm a courageous person. I'm just going to jump in, and it helps me make the first step towards new things, or, you know, something I'm not, something that's out of my comfort zone.
I love how this part keeps coming up, keeps popping up, like this identity piece, because we know what our strengths is. Well, I'm a courageous person, so I can do this, right? Well, I'm a persistent person, so I can do this. Like this part of the narrative that would not be possible if you did not do your strengths profile. And it's really as simple as that.
And it's that, you know, Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. So, you know, our thinking and what we tell ourselves has such a powerful effect on how we feel, and how we feel has such a powerful effect on what we do, how we behave. So just that shift of, I know this about myself, which makes me feel good, which enables me to take action. Very simple, but so powerful.
Yeah, and it's confirmation, I guess. You know, some of these things are things you've probably heard from teachers or friends or former employers. So it's confirmation. I think if it's something that has come up before and it then comes up in your strengths profile, it is a little bit of confirmation about it, about that thing about yourself. And I think also the self-awareness that comes about from having completed the profile helps with that as well, helps to kind of activate.
And it's Catherine, it's interesting what you're saying about, you know, teachers telling you about yourself. It's so important for people, young adults who are moving into different careers, to understand themselves, because, you know, work takes up so much part of our lives. We really need to understand what we enjoy doing, what gives us joy, and to find work and a career that enables us to tap into those strengths, because we're going to be so much happier in our work life if we're playing to our strengths. So I mean, for me, for example, I have detail as a weakness. If anybody asked me if I had a job which enabled me to be looking and spotting errors and problems, I'd be like, oh no. So knowing yourself is really helpful when you're thinking about your career. And of course, with the strengths profile now, it has a new section in relation to career advice, which is really helpful too.
Okay, so Catherine, how do you think you have changed after the strength coaching session? What has moved for you?
I guess there's that sense of self-awareness, that you're a little bit more confident in the way you do things, and also, I suppose, getting clearer on the things you want to keep doing. And as I said, the things like writing and listening and courage are all things that, you know, I try to bring into my everyday working life. So I guess what has changed is probably a bit of clarity, really, a lot of clarity in what I do and how I go about it.
So I'm hearing that the strengths coaching have given you clarity, confidence, and I'm hearing a sense of certainty too. Is that?
Yeah, I guess confidence is a good word. Uh, uh, there is something very powerful about seeing the I guess it's easy to pigeonhole yourself and think, well, I'm good at this and I'm bad at this, and you think in terms of one or two things. So when you see a strengths profile laid out, there's a real breadth of strengths and unrealized strengths and behaviors in there that maybe you hadn't thought about at all. So I think if the profile report that you get is quite lengthy. So I think if you take the time to go through the whole lot, then I guess if you took all of those strengths into consideration, there's probably nothing that you couldn't do.
And so you'll be like superpower, right?
Superpower.
Yeah.
But just can I just pick up on what Catherine was saying in relation to clarity? I think what's really important is in the discussion, in the debriefing, the person that's having the debriefing has the opportunity to talk and say things out loud. And it's rare that somebody is listened to for an hour or an hour and a half or however long that debriefing takes, and having that opportunity to say things out loud and to get things out of that person's head and to just verbalize those thoughts in relation to their strengths is so empowering. And as Catherine said, I think that really gives the person clarity, because they've taken their thoughts out of their head, they've verbalized them, they've articulated them, and now they have clarity about what they need to do next.
Yeah, that's a good point, Julie. Actually, none of this works without being guided through it. It's the conversations you have about it are more powerful than the tool itself.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the obviously the report is really, really useful, but what brings more energy and more power, as you've said, is that conversation with the person that you're working with, because then they can tease out what's important for you in relation to that profile.
Yeah, and how to put it into action.
And putting it into action. Yeah.
So, Catherine, what would be your advice to someone who is considering strength coaching?
I'd say go for it. Definitely, there's no doubt.
Be courageous and go for it.
Yeah.
I would think some might be nervous. It's really strange, but you would think, strength coaching will be energizing. But some people have hesitation, like, I'm not sure. It's almost like I'm not sure if I want to give myself permission to talk about my strengths.
Yeah, it's a reasonably low, the bar to doing it. I mean, the actual exercise of doing it is not difficult. So it's the actual questionnaire to complete. So I would say just go with it. And I mean, I guess some of it may be uncomfortable afterwards if you're not used to that, focusing on speaking about yourself and that kind of thing. But that can only lead to a positive result.
I think, just to add to that, I think the other thing that sometimes people feel is, okay, this is obviously it's a self-assessment, so you're answering questions about yourself. But even the word assessment, people think, oh gosh, therefore there's a right and a wrong. There's no right or wrong here. This is your strengths profile, which is uniquely you. And there is no such thing as the perfect profile. We're all different, and that's what's wonderful about us as human beings. So it's just fantastic to be able to see that about yourself and say, okay, actually, I have all these wonderful strengths I can use, and now I need to explore how I can use them. So never be put off by it. There is no right or wrong. It's just a wonderful profile that is unique to you.
Yeah, sometimes I struggle when I talk to people. Should I use the word assessment, or should I use the word survey, or should I use the word test?
I think sometimes questionnaire seems less.
Questionnaire?
But it isn't a test. It's just you. It's self-development. Of course, that's what it is. You're getting to know yourself a little bit more, and now that you have this report, you can use that to help you in relation to your work or your home life or whatever it might be.
Okay, that was a really enriching conversation that we're having, and I feel very uplifting because of it. just talking about what has already happened in the past. The strengths coaching that the two of you did is already over. Yet, just even simply talking about it is so energizing. And I wasn't a part of it, but I feel so energized just listening to what happened and the insights you get. That's why I find strength so addictive, and that's why I decided to be a strengths coach. So, thank you for affirming my choice of occupation.
You're very welcome.
So, Catherine, do you have anything that you want to say to Julie?
Yeah, I was thinking about this actually before coming on, and as I said at the start, I first met Julie when she was delivering positive psychology and personal development workshops, and I did the strengths profile. I then went on to train as a strengths practitioner, and I with Julie, and after that I went on to train as a business coach with her. So I guess that part of my career development has been hugely down to Julie, actually, and more recently it has come full circle, and we've begun to work together on a few things, and I have been lucky enough to experience her as a coach. She's done some coaching sessions with me, and so I'd just like to say thank you, Julie.
No, thank you, Catherine. I think what's wonderful is that, sometimes, we've been isolated and people are working from home and people are often self-employed. I think what Catherine and I have experienced is the joy of having somebody else to collaborate with and work with just brings out the best in everybody, because then it's more fun. So it's been an absolute joy to work with Catherine. So because Catherine has used her unique strengths to help me. So I need to thank you back, Catherine.
I'm enjoying this warm, fuzzy feeling that's going on you, and I'm like a beneficiary, just like laughing it up. So, as you can see, strengths is so amazing, can ripple into other things, and relationship can change because people realizing that each other's superpower, and then like, hey, we can do this together, and suddenly there's all these doors that open to you that didn't happen in the past because you were not aware. You were not viewing life from the lens of strengths, using the language of strengths, and looking at yourself and people around you through the lens of strength. So I would highly encourage you, audience who's watching it, to explore whether you want to experience having strengths coaching, whether you've heard from Catherine, this is what is her experience like doing strengths coaching, or even just simply get started in some small ways in looking and really paying attention to your strengths. So who knows what you might discover when you know your superpowers.
Absolutely. Well said.
So thank you, ladies, for joining me. I've really enjoyed our time together. So now I want to share about this 30-day strengths challenge that we have. So people who use their strengths are known to be 18 times more likely to be flourishing than those who do not use their strengths. What kind of a breakthrough would you have after 30 days of focused strengths training? And who would you become after 30 days of focusing on who you are at your best? Sign up for a 30-day strength challenge with me. Be guided with resources to unleash your best self. Activate strengths-based living. Learn from other superheroes. Be supported and be held accountable for your inspired action. 30 days of strengths with joy starts this week. So sign up and let's start your superpower. Let's get it activated. So now I'm going to share a short video about the strengths challenge. Okay, so 30 Days of Strength with me starts this week. So remember to sign up. Thank you, ladies, for coming on the show. Let's
Thanks,
end
Joy.
this show with a high note with our super powerfuls. Thank you. Thank you all. See you next episode.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Joy.
Bye,
Bye, Julie.
everybody. Bye, Catherine. Bye, Joy. Bye-bye, everybody.